They will no longer be able to hide.
Those who call themselves preachers of Christianity, aside from not knowing how to identify when Christ comes, neither are they able to detect an antichrist. That is truly sad, because if, according to them, God is with them, and they are God's representatives here on earth, how could they not be the first ones to identify Christ if Christ would supposedly appear to them first? Think about it. If God were with them, speaking to them, telling them what they should preach every Sunday, then why hasn't God told them or shown them who the Antichrist would be? Or more importantly, who God's Christ would be? The answer is simple, and MelquisedecLisbet has been repeating it for years. They could not identify Christ nor the Antichrist simply because God the Father is not with them. And that is why, in the eyes of Christ herself, these men are liars and false preachers. What is their intention? Lying to all of us. Because no one in their right mind would tell us that God spoke to them when that is a lie. They definitely have ulterior motives, which are certainly not good, because what good can come from lying to us about something so important and significant as a message that supposedly comes directly from God? If you say that God spoke to you, the logical thing would be for you to provide proof of that, and if you cannot, then people should not believe you. You should not believe any of those false preachers because they have no evidence to back up what they say. They lie by saying, God spoke to me today and gave me a word for you, or God appeared to me last night in a vision. What liars! How can they play with people's emotions so easily, lying to them all the time? And boy, do the naive believe them. It's sad to think that, in the past, we were one of those naive people. That is why we are so grateful to God, the Father Melchizedek, for manifesting his Christ in these latter days. Where would we be today if it were not for the glorious manifestation of MelquisedecLisbet, the light of the world? Some of the so-called evangelicals have such poor judgment that you even hear them say absurd things, like that Donald Trump is the second coming of Christ. That is the most ridiculous and offensive thing that Christ has heard in these days, because to say that Christ could actually be anything like him is disgusting. But that only confirms what she already knew, that in the evil plotting of these religious men, they need an evil man in power to help them cover up their corrupt and evil past and present. Just as you see him trying to hide his own aberrations. But we will always be grateful because God the Father has manifested the light of the world, MelquisedecLisbet, and these men will no longer be able to hide the iniquity that lurks in the darkness of their minds, and everything will come to light, even the deepest of their past. The so-called evangelicals or so-called Christians don't even know what the first manifestation of Christ is, to even imagine her second coming. That is why MelquisedecLisbet has been cautioning for all these years that the so-called Christians are wasting their time waiting for a Christ coming in the clouds. That will never happen like they imagine, because that is not the truth. Look around you. It is obvious that we are living in the latter days, and we should not be thinking like children about fictitious things when it comes to God and Christ. Start listening to the good message of heaven that God the Father Melchizedek has brought through MelquisedecLisbet to save those who want to be saved, and who genuinely love God the Father and Christ as they truly are, the spiritual father and mother of the humble of heart. Are you arrogant, or do you have a humble heart? If you want to learn to be humble as is pleasing to God the Father, then obey the commandments of MelquisedecLisbet and learn from her. She is patient and truly humble, and you will find repose for your soul. Amen.